Okay. Our mission, Helping Parents Heal, is a nonprofit organization dedicated to assisting bereaved parents. Through support and resources offered, we aspire to help individuals become shining light parents, meaning a shift from a state of emotional heaviness to one of hopefulness and greater peace of mind. Helping Parents Heal goes a step beyond other groups by allowing the open discussion of spiritual experiences and afterlife evidence in a non-dogmatic way. Helping Parents Heal affiliate groups welcome everyone, regardless of religious or non-religious background, and encourage open dialogue. Attendance at all Helping Parents Heal meetings is voluntary. All discussions that take place at affiliate-led meetings are confidential. We hope that participants will learn from and share with each other. Zoom meetings run by leadership are not confidential. These meetings typically feature guest presenters and are posted on YouTube so that affiliate members worldwide can watch and benefit. Neither type of Helping Parents Heal meeting is designed to replace traditional therapy or spiritual counseling. Helping Parents Heal offers a wide variety of speakers, allowing parents to learn about many possible ways to heal. This includes presenters covering progressive topics such as afterlife evidence and connecting with our children who have passed. The views expressed by our guest speakers may or may not reflect the opinions of Helping Parents Heal leaders and members, so we ask that you take from their presentations whatever may benefit you personally. Welcome, everyone. We're so glad you can be with us this evening. It's such a treat to have Sara Ruble here with us this evening, and I'm going to read just a little bit about Sara. Soul planning, living within two worlds. Spirit is pushing me, Sara, to share more spiritual insights on this important topic of our soul plans and the courageous journeys we are taking with our amazing children. Let's come together for even greater clarity and conversations. Our kids are well aware of our plans too, so let's shine even more light on this. There truly is meaning in everything, everything, everything. To read more about Sara's journey with her son Scott, please check out her blogs at www.spiritteaches.org. Sara presented this important topic at the first Helping Parents Heal conference. She channels her only son, Scott, providing healing insight and spiritual clarity. Together, they have helped many parents on their healing journeys with a more understandable view of soul planning. Their goal is to enlighten your grief and reaffirm the depth of the ongoing connections with your children, bringing greater clarity to transitioning, spirit, soul, and the undeniable, unconditional love that continues forever and beyond. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to my dear friend, Sara. Welcome, Sara. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Irene. Wow, and Galen too. Thank you. It's so interesting to have you read that bio and all, because I know that Scott writes so much of what I say, and he brings through so much of what I share. And so to read, to hear those words, it's like, okay, he was sharing how he sees me and what I'm doing in this lifetime, which I never could have imagined. So I welcome you all here. I just want you to know that I was where you are at one point in my life, and for many years, I can tell you. And so my heart goes out to all of you in the knowing that there's so many questions and so much left to learn that you don't even know about. And yet there are more and more answers coming about, which is what Helping Parents Heal helps so much with every night, practically, it seems, one way or another. So grateful to Irene and Elizabeth for all that they do and bring us together in this way. So I'm really pleased to see how many of you are interested in the soul planning, that you are going to spend this hour with us, and to see. We want you to ask questions, so please put them in the chat, because it's one of the best ways for me to know what it is that you really need to understand on this journey with the soul planning, because I know it can be confusing. There's many different versions, that I've learned myself about soul planning. So I have to tell you, and some of you are going to hear things you've heard from me before, but it just kind of reiterates it. And I see the familiar faces here, which I love. So I did not know about soul planning for 14 years. Scott passed away in 1994 when there was like nothing out there for me to tap into. And so I didn't even know anything about the soul work, the soul position in my life. But I can tell you that even if there were a few books available, I tapped into what I could. I felt that Scott was around me, coming to me in some dreams. I didn't understand a lot of it, but I was certainly writing it down and trying to grasp what all this means in this really bigger picture. And well, 14 years later, yes, I read Robert Schwartz's book, Your Soul's Plan, which was my opening into all of this. And then from that point on, Scott, Spirit One, has been bringing me information and guiding me to live my life fully, knowing it's soul planned, which is what I do each and every day now. And I'll get to that in a little while. And I can honestly tell you that's been very helpful in every aspect of my life. And to know that there's much more to me, to this journey, to my relationship with Scott, to my relationship with other people, where I'm going, what things I've let go of, what people aren't in my life any longer, all those different things that, sometimes we can ponder and just carry within us and fret and worry and like wonder. So this takes time, and we'll give you the time. And so I always kind of start out with something that I got from Oprah, who was one of my teachers in the 90s. She brought a lot of teachers onto her show. And there was a statement that came about that just really stayed with me, that I've carried all along, that I pass along as well, which is, we are not spiritual beings having a human experience. It's quite the opposite. We're truly spiritual beings having a human experience. If you twist that and turn that into, it allows us to see that we're really so much more than we ever thought. We hear we're human beings. We know we're human beings. We have frailties as human beings. But what if this whole experience of this lifetime that we're here, we're really a soul, a spirit within this body that came here to experience life in all the ways that it's come. And especially, in the aspect of our child leaving their bodies, our child or children, leaving their bodies and leaving us with 1 million or 5 million questions that often feel like they're getting unanswered. And yet, if you give yourself time, and that's what we all have to do, bring this into a place of having more meaning than you could ever imagine. I felt as well that Scott literally had disappeared, and I did not know what to do with that. I now know that he's a spiritual being as well. He has a soul. He completed his lifetime at age 19, his time here, and left. And I was given a sign, which I didn't even know about signs, the day after his funeral. So that was a week after his death. And it was so significant. It was a sign that I've carried with me ever since, that I did not know was possible. And for all of you, any sign that you've ever had, or the earliest sign, it was one of those, I'm sure, awe-struck moments that it's like, what does this mean? Is this really happening? Is my child really connecting with me? We don't know how, when, where that's going to happen. And some people get more signs than others. But I think that always goes back to our soul plan as well. We don't know what we planned in this lifetime with our children. And that is the hardest part. But I can tell you, on my journey of now 29 and a half years with Scott in spirit, is that I began to see, and now I live within the knowing that this was always the journey we were meant to take. There's nothing I could have done to have changed it, to have, kept him here. It was always the destiny for what he was going to go do and what I needed to do with this journey. And I hope that you can take that in a way, no matter how your child passed, and I know there's so many ways, so many challenging ways that you're trying to still understand or to take in. But when you can trust, and we do learn to trust, and I say trust the journey a lot. Scott brought me those words. And Trusting means you don't have all the answers, right? But you know that there's something more going on, and you're going to give yourself that time and that grace to begin to see that there's more to this story than you ever knew before. I hope you take notes. I mean, not here necessarily, but I hope that you have a journal. I hope you write things down. I hope you keep a scrapbook or whatever it is going to be of little things that you collect, that you know that your son or daughter are coming to you in ways that you never could have known before this all happened. So I was telling Irene before we got on here that I have a quote from David Kessler that kind of says a lot when we start thinking about this. He says, we were designed to take these hits in this lifetime because our soul knows. And many of you know David Kessler. You might have taken classes from him. He's a lovely teacher in so many ways, so aware. Worked with Louise Hay, who was one of my early teachers, who's since passed. But when he said we were designed, that's our soul. That's us planning this lifetime before we came into this body, with our children, with our families, with others, the destiny of life, the careers we would take, the stumbles, the falls, the successes, all of that. If you could imagine, how do we plan all that? Somehow, I don't know. I can't give you that answer, but it is vast. And yet there is so much more meaning to our everyday than we have ever given credit to. And maybe we don't need to have all the answers. So to simplify this in the ways that I have for myself is with a David Kessler quote that says we were designed to take these hits, which this is a hit, this is a huge hit, this is life-changing, it's forever in this lifetime. And how you take that in is how you will take that in. And I hope that you begin to see that this was, we often feel that this was done without the dignity or the love that spirit could provide us, that it just came into our lives and took our children away, and we're left with all that unanswered questions. But if we go into that bigger picture that we're all souls, and as we're planning this before we're even born, I planned with Scott, you planned with your children, that there was a need for us to come into this lifetime together, have all that we had in this lifetime, the relationships, the ups and downs, the learning, the teaching, the everything. How could we have ever known that all this would be needed for this lifetime that I've gone through or that you're going through? But how do we say it was needed, or how could it possibly have been something that we would have agreed to? I had to question that as well. It seems impossible. I know that. I know it seems impossible. And yet, in spirit, in that all-knowing place where our children are, who can leave us signs and they can bring us dreams, how do they do that? It's magic. They know more. They have greater ability. They know that we are struggling. They also know that we are uninformed in lots of ways. And how do they get to us? How do they get to our hearts? How do they come back to us? In only the very unique ways that they can. You may have that special cardinal, sign. You may have it in all the, any kind of sign that you get that's repetitive. For me, it was XOX. Scott and I always signed cards with that. He'd put it all over a card, all over the envelope. And yet I'll see XOX different places, or XOXO. And I know that he's showing me that he is connecting with me. So when you begin to realize that if you have repetitive signs, your child is saying, are you listening? I am here. I have not left you, even though it seems like I've left you forever and ever. Let them come back in. They're always going to be in our hearts. But when we can intellectually begin to let them back into our lives in a way that, we kind of put fences around ourselves and we try to protect ourselves. But the one place that we are open to is them, right? Their signs, their dreams, any kind of connection that we find with them. So keep that open and allow that part of you to continue to open up in a way that you never have before. Literally, I'm still taking new steps. After all these years, things can happen to me that I never could have imagined. I'm in awe of so much that's happened. And yet I'm still knowing I don't have all the answers, but I will share with you, what I know so far and what has helped me and what I feel is more purposeful and meaningful than you might get from some others. I'm a mom who's talking about soul planning. You have other experts out there, not saying I'm an expert, but you can have experts out there telling you about soul planning. It can get very complex and complicated. And I had to walk away from some of that and then just allow Scott to teach me as he's done to make this less complicated, to simplify this, to say, listen, we still have a relationship. We planned this before we were born, before I was born, before Scott was born for sure. We have been in past lives together. Can we prove that? Well, if you have a past life regression, you may be able to. Scott, I've been beneficial in that way of Scott telling me of some past lives that I've had that are pretty wild. And, but it gives me an insight into who I've been. But even if you don't know what your specific past lives are, just know this: your child has definitely been in past lives with you. You're with Helping Parents Heal. You found this site because of the connection, the spiritual connection you wanted and needed, and your soul was saying, you need this. And so if you might have tried other groups and they did not feed your soul, know that this is a place that's going to be able to open you up in the ways that you need. And what will your timing be on this? I don't know. I didn't know what my timing would be on learning about soul planning at 14 years, or knowing that I would hear Scott at 6 years with not talking to me like he does today, but it took 6 years. But I didn't know the possibilities that many of you know of now. And I think Spirit's moving along in different ways too. But at 6 years, when I heard Scott saying, many of you have heard this, build a children's memorial, I didn't even know what that meant. It's like, I think I just heard somebody tell me to build a children's memorial, but I do not know what that means. And it just passed through my head. And then when it came back again 3 weeks later, when I was sitting at a red light, it's like, build the children's memorial. It's like, is that Scott? It does not sound like him. I never thought he could talk to me. And he's telling me to build a children's memorial, which would be like one of the craziest things that I would never do. I mean, I couldn't imagine even trying that, or, I'd be open to it. But the second time I heard it, something switched inside of me. I don't know if you ever had a switch up come on that says, I'm believing in more, I'm seeing more, I can trust in a little bit more than I've ever known before. And we built the children's memorial. I went out and found moms and dads they were already in my parents' group that I was doing. And we built it. We raised $50,000 in 7 months and built a children's memorial here in Stowe, Ohio. How did that happen? It was never in my wheelhouse. It was never anything I thought of doing. It's never anything that I could have seen myself doing. How and why? And if you would ask Irene, or you would ask Elizabeth, or others that are here, the affiliate leaders, or others that are doing things like this, what prompted you to do that? It came from somewhere else. And even if I hadn't heard the words build a children's memorial that went through my head, even a thought that could have come to you about go check on the dog, something like that. And you see, oh my gosh, I'm glad I went to check on the dog because she or he needed me. Because I now know that these words that we are hearing in our heads, they're not just us, making that up. Where do those words come from? Where do those thoughts come from? Any thought that we have during the day, where do they come from? That's where they come from. We're constantly linked up to spirit. Is it your child talking to you always? Could be. It could be someone else, but we don't know. But my whole point with this is you start to trust in more. And I always like to say, to try and give it meaning, even if you can't understand it has what meaning it has, just say, I don't know this. I don't understand this whole thing that's happening to me, but somehow I know it's important and it must have meaning. And once you can kind of do that, you begin to see that your soul is working within you, that the journey that you're on is moving you along into new places, meeting new people in this group and other places that you have, come into. If you've left your job, That was meant to be. That would be on your soul plan. No big decision like that is made without that being included on your soul plan. So I hope that's not confusing. I want to make this as simple as possible. I have a few questions that I've put out to myself that you may have too. One would be, are all the events that happen while you're here on Earth soul planned? I say yes, because that's what I get from Spirit. That's what I get from Scott. You may hear others say, no, no, no. It's not like that. My answer to you would be on that, would my thought would be, what you take in is what you're going to take in. What resonates with you, and I'll use that word a lot, what resonates with you, kind of stick with that. Write that down. If something comes to you and it's like, I wonder about that, write it down and just have it in a journal or something to go back and look at later on. So I have literally lived my life since I started this journey in new ways on what resonates with me, what feels differently than I've ever known before. And I link into that as my soul talking to me, Scott's talking to me, whatever it may be, just the bigger picture coming into my life. So I get from Spirit that everything is soul planned. And I know that you could all ask, and we'll probably get to questions. I hope that we can answer some too. You know, my child died in a horrible, not my son, Scott died in his sleep. He was ill in a national park 1,000 miles away. So hard, very hard. But I know so many of you, your children have suffered greatly in ways that you couldn't have imagined. And that in itself breaks my heart. And yet, and when it's time, when you're able to take that in and say, this has meaning. I hate it. It was cruel. It was mean. Why would anyone do this to a child or to our family or to me? And yet, with knowing there's a bigger picture all around us, a spiritual, gift, a spiritual, whatever you may be able to believe in, to know that this is a bigger journey than you ever knew before, is to know somehow whatever you've gone through has meaning. Whatever your child went through has meaning. But I'm certain that once they get to Spirit, they are free of all that. They see what was going on, and where they are allows them, with Spirit, God, however you want to call it, to be able to see exactly what happened and why they needed that experience. They will see the meaning in it for themselves. And that gives me peace of mind as well. Because the cruelty that we feel that happens, or the devastation, all of that, our children are able almost to turn around in a way and bring us a sign quicker, maybe more quickly than you ever thought. How can they do that? They were ill. They were not able to communicate with us, some of them. Even a child who was handicapped, who never could speak, communicates from Spirit with signs. How can they do that? Because they're free of all those things that were holding them back. That's their soul journey. So I see my friend Karen here from Australia. We talk every week. We have her son Morris passed of cancer, which was, when I speak to you about, having something like that, that would be so hard and lengthy. When we talk now, her son Morris comes through in ways that, his mom is beginning to see in more ways than she ever knew before. And now, unbelievably, in the last 2 weeks, there have been at least 3 experiences where her son Morris and Scott, my Scott's name, is popping up in, between the two of us, or for her in Australia, me in America. And the boys are now working on that connection and showing us that this friendship that we have, that, we just talked one day and kind of hit it off, and we've been talking ever since. It's almost a year. And the boys are showing up and showing us in ways. And I love for you, Karen, you're at 3 years. You've got so many questions and learning so much. And I'm not going to go into the details of the things that have happened, but this week, but it has been pretty extraordinary to see how something can come through to show us that our boys are together in the ways that they are. My son would be 48. you know, Morris was 17 when he got cancer, and he passed at 20. He would be 23. And yet they're together. Age is nothing in spirit. And so to know that these connections are going to show up in your lives too. I hope they already have, with some moms and dads that you've met through Helping Parents Heal, to see that those children, that our children are actually teaching us about soul planning. It's like, there is a plan here, mom, dad. There's something more going on. I want you to meet her. I want you to meet him. I want you to go there. I want you to go on that cruise. I need you to go on that cruise. I need you to go to that location, whatever it may be. Or I need you to read this book. I mean, have you ever gone and you start reading a book and thinking, this isn't going to show me anything? If there's one sentence in there that jumps out at you, it was worth reading that book. So we start to take all this that comes into us, and we begin to see there is more to it than we ever thought before. So that's why I now believe 100% that everything that I need in this lifetime, I'm getting. It's coming, and I'm living it, and it's been ups and downs. It's not easy, and I'm shown sometimes that I can do things I never thought that I could do. And so allow yourself the time to grow through this and see yourself in the vulnerable way that you are now. Be there, but you're here, and I love that. And you're listening, and you will pick up a little here and a little there from different speakers and from what I bring tonight, what we bring. So I'm just going to go through, because I think these questions are these just things that I've wondered about that Scott then answered for me. So who does this planning? Who does this planning for us when we're in spirit? Do we just do it with each person we're going to be in this lifetime with? Does God do it? Does your soul, do our guides? It's all there. It's everyone. We see people as human beings and separate. They're like one. They see so much more in this bigger picture that, we have to just kind of take in and kind of try and imagine, because we can't even know or understand the vastness of all that they can see and show us in a split second, that because they want us to know that they're with us, and that this love can only be greater love from where they are. We know what our love feels like. It's painful. And yet it pushes us, and it says, I'm not giving up. I'm going to go to this meeting tonight, or I'm going to read that book, or I'm just going to lay in bed and cry today because I miss you so much. All of that comes into this journey that we're on. And yet allow it to be. You need relief. You need then, I felt like that one day, and then I was in a restaurant one day, and I heard the song Lean on Me, which is an ancient song. And if you listen to the words, it's like, lean on me. Well, just the title of it, it's like, okay, I will. I'm trying. I don't know exactly how to lean on you, Scott, but you're here telling me to lean on you. So I'll take that in. And whenever I hear a song, I print up the lyrics, and there's so much more that you can even find in those than you ever imagined too. So I'm just putting that out. So another question that people have asked me before, and I hope you're writing questions down, because I want to start answering some things. Do souls always succeed with their plans, or sometimes do they fail? So what I get is that they always leave the way that they're meant to leave, which means that they were, I guess, successful. And I know that there's something about exit points that, it's like, well, they probably should have, they almost left 3 years ago because something happened in a car accident, or they were choking, or something, they had taken the wrong drug or something like that. I look at that from what I've learned, and I'm just saying what I've learned is spirit bringing those words through me too, is that was an experience that everyone that was connected to your child and had that experience was meant to go through too. Even though it did not come to their leaving their body at that point in time, that experience was needed and necessary for so many more reasons than we could imagine, and yet purposeful. And so when sometimes we can look at things, it's like, what a waste of time that was. Try not to do that, because try and turn that around to this must have meaning or it wouldn't have come into our lives. And the children now know that, the time that they left, it was their time to go. And so as parents here, we're looking at these exit points like, well, at one point I heard there were 7 you could have, or there might be 5, or there's 3. There's so many different versions of that from the experts that we might hear from. So my voice, my Scott spirit coming through me says, when we finally leave our bodies, that was the exit point that was always meant to be. It was always meant to be. And if someone has a near-death experience, again, they were meant to have that experience, and they were meant to come back into their body and either share that with us or write a book or, think about it on their own or go into some sort of depression because of it. It could be any number of things. But that was an experience. When it's a near-death experience and they come back into their body, it was always the intention, is what I get. And a lot of those past life, a lot of those near-death experiences, I think, can be kind of frightening to hear about because of what people might see or feel. And so the answer that I've gotten to that is that person, that one person, particular person that we're thinking about or hearing from, needed that experience for their own experience. Then they come back and they tell us about it, share it, and we try and fit that into our experience or our knowing or our awareness. So I'm just kind of putting that out there too for something to think about. You don't have to believe every single thing I tell you. I am just sharing what I've learned and what has really resonated with me and allowed me to find peace of mind and in this lifetime as I continue on in my life. Another question: can pre-planning be changed? And if so, by whom? Well, I think if anybody's going to change it, it's can only be spirit. They're pretty much, even though we feel like we have tons of free will, because I don't believe in free will anymore. I feel everything that comes is needed, planned, was going to come anyway. I think sometimes that's kind of hard to take in. I think I'm giving you an awful lot. Am I going too fast here?
Good.
Okay. The free will issue. What I learned, I thought I had free will. I mean, I felt like every decision I was making that was my decision, I'm going to change my life and I'm going to do this or I'm going to do that. I would own that. It's like, yeah, I made that decision. I don't know where it's going to take me, but I made that decision. It was my free will. Well, what I've learned, what I've been told is that our free will is going to be brought by spirit. It was something that we always were meant to experience. We can label it as a human, my free will. Let's say you're taking meditation class and you're getting so much out of it. And it's like, oh, I'm so glad I took it. Yes, right. Anything that gives you peace of mind or opens you up to more. But if you think that you're honoring yourself by doing it, you are. But let's go a little bit deeper and think, were you always meant to take that meditation class? Was that always meant to resonate with you and help you and allow you to see more and bigger picture and all? Yes. I took meditation classes. I took so many meditation classes. I got nothing out of it. Honestly, it just did not work for me. And it was so frustrating. I mean, I could have cried about this. I think I did, because I'd be with a group in time when I found a group of moms and dads who were doing this. And it was like, they're hearing their child. I'm not hearing Scott. I'm in a closed room with the blinds down, basically, with like, it was just dark in there for me in my head. And so it was so frustrating because I thought, well, meditation is supposed to connect us with our child, or, well, what else can I try that's going to allow me to connect? What we find, I think, is that you will find what works for you, but you need to try it. So something fascinates you or resonates with you initially, you were meant to go and take that and have that human experience with it, a soul experience too, but have that human experience and say, is this helping me? Is this frustrating me? But I'll keep on going. Well, if you keep on going, you're meant to keep on going. If you give up on it, you were meant to. But let's say you revisit that again in 2 years, and it might work then, because the timing was now right for you to be able to connect with your child or feel some peace that would come from that experience. So I'm going to stop there because I want to answer questions, and I don't want to put too much more out there and make you all walk away like, wow, she just ran through too many things too fast for me. So
Sure, I'll read a couple of questions. I wanted to mention to everyone that Robert Schwartz is going to be speaking on Thursday evening, September 7th. So, Sarah, I hope you'll be on and you'll be able to
I know him
join us.
personally. I
I
will. Yeah.
know, I know. So good. And it was one of the first books that I read after Carly passed, and it was a little difficult at first, but in later years, it's brought me a lot of comfort. And what I'd like to ask you or just talk about is I've had so many parents say to me, I cannot believe that I have agreed to this. There is no way that I've agreed to this. Do you talk about the fact that they're talking and thinking as a human and not as a soul? And how do you help someone come to understand that?
Yes. I think it just takes practice. I think you just have to allow to come what comes. And it's one of those things that, I mean, I don't even know how you actually learn how to do that. I think that we have to get a feel for this. It's like, it's like when you're driving a car, a brand new car, and you don't know what you're doing. Let's say you're 16 years old or 15 years old learning to drive. It's like my dad taught me with a clutch because he had a little sports car. It's like, oh my gosh, I don't have enough feet for all these things on the floor, but to have a clutch. And so, you slowly, learn how to do it. And I think that it's almost everything that we're doing here. You take something that comes in that you hear about or that you're learning from, and you take it in and you maybe don't implement it at that point, and you start to begin to see if it comes back in another way and another way, and it starts to make more sense, and it allows you to begin to see a bigger picture or to trust in more. I think all those things, it just takes time. There's no one way
Wonderful.
to do it.
Yeah. And it reminds me, you and I had this conversation about surrendering. And when we talked about that, and you had said to me, surrendering doesn't mean giving up.
Mhm.
And that was like a really profound statement for me. And it's helped me tremendously when I think about soul planning.
Yeah, me too. I had to learn that.
Okay. All right. So Haley asked, was your son's early departure due in part to teach you lessons? And if so, what lessons have you uncovered? And I think you've touched on some of that.
But I truly do believe that he, I say when I've done other classes like this, that we would take one for the team for our child, right? We would sacrifice, we would take one for the team. We have relationships that have gone back and forth with our children and our husbands and loved ones, in different roles. It happens. And so we're willing, we know what we need, and that our children knew that somehow in this lifetime, this experience was going to teach us. They didn't know it at the time. They couldn't have known it until they got to spirit and they see everything. To know that this lifetime is going to show you something more about yourself, about the bigger picture. I mean, did any of us know anything about spirituality before this? I mean, some might have known something, but to the degree that we can learn now, the depth of thinking that our child is still connected to us, I knew nothing about this. And I can see in 29 years, that's a long time. And I don't know, at one point I would have told you how much I'd learned. But if it was like at 5 years or 10 years, I was learning something all the time. When I look back now, you don't have the ability to do that quite yet. But the further you go in your grief, you can look back and say, I did not think I could do this. I didn't think I'd get through the first year. Then I thought the third year would be the worst. I thought Scott would be gone in 3 years and say, sorry, Mom, in any way that he would. I don't know. I've got stuff to do over here. He hasn't, he has stayed. And so to be able to, just see, the taking one for the team. Did they take one for the team? Yeah, but it's all done in love. We would have done it. We would have done it. You know it. This love is that big. That love that they have for us is this big. Because we take turns coming into earth, into the human body, to grow. You know, we don't really have to do that in spirit. We're all knowing there, but in the body, and this is a whole nother era. If you were, let's say you were in your body in the early 1900s, you would have learned what you needed then. Now in this period of time, look at everything that we're learning. It's a new era. It's a new time. We're meant to learn not just the technology, but about the spirituality, about the depth of this, about who we are, and the modes of, now having so many. Look what helping parents, look what Elizabeth and Irene have every night. There's something new to learn from or to see in all of this. And this is a time of growth and awareness opened up by spirit that hasn't been around ever. So it's a time that you are meant to come if you're here and going through this, which we all are. And if you can look at that and go, well, I don't really care about that stuff. I know. In time, you will look back and you will see, how you've changed, the people you've met, the growth that you had. And you'll be able to say, I couldn't have said this 5 years ago or whatever, but 10 years ago, but I see who I've become because of this. I've been able to see my ability to connect with my child, or my ability to help other people, or to become a caretaker or an affiliate leader, or to go out into the world in new ways and start a foundation. I mean, you look at, there's bereaved parents all over that are doing things they never thought that they could. And then you become an inspiration to others. My inspiration was always the Mothers Against Drunk Driving mom, whose daughter died in the 90s, that she inspired me to not give up and get out there and do what you can, if you can, one person at a time, help. So only that's the rest of the story to be written, right? For all of us, not knowing what's in the future, but our kids took one for the team. I would definitely say that, if you want to put it in that way, but they knew what they were doing. They know what they're doing. They know what you need to do. They're here to guide us and show us more and open us up to so much more than you could see ever before, even through the pain.
Beautiful. And Jennifer is asking, please tell me or help me, how do I hear from my son? What can I do to hear from my son?
Honestly, I think that's something that I don't know. I mean, you could try every technique, try everything, be open, write, try these things. I don't know what anyone's one particular way would be. I think you almost have to just trust the journey. I know that sounds hard because you don't like the journey anyway. And how do you do this without hearing from your child? But your child, if your child could talk to you, I'm certain they would say, hang on, mom, it's not time yet. We planned this. There's a need for you to keep on seeking. Don't give up. There's more. And to know that whenever that will be. But I can also tell you, and I don't want to say that this won't happen to any of us here or any of you, but when I was working with parents in the 90s, I did a parents group for 7 years, from 94 to 2004, and or 2002. But I know a lot of moms from back then, and they weren't hearing their children. They still don't really hear their children. But they are, in a way, because they went out and they, as I said earlier, they started foundations. They started walking for Relay for Life if their child died of cancer. They found ways to help other people, to enrich their own lives. And that connection with their child continued to just stay with them forever, because even if they weren't hearing from their child, and I'm not saying that's going to happen to you that ask this question, give yourself time, but engage yourself in some ways, when it feels right, to reach out and see, is there something I want to do? I did a scholarship for Scott, or and here's another thing. Scott was an environmentalist. He would have cleaned up your backyard if he needed to. He was going to clean up things. He was going to keep things green, all of this. My husband and I, who's not Scott's dad, we started cleaning up Stowe, Ohio. We'd go out on the roads with a group of people several times a year with our trash bags, and we would literally clean up the trash alongside of roads. But it wasn't like a gross job. because I knew that Scott had to know I was doing this and that he somehow was coming along with me, or even if I didn't know at the time, that I was doing this for him, that he would do this, that he would go out and do it. And so find those ways to include your child in some activity or something that you're doing. And I can guarantee you they're not there. If they're not there that you can see or hear, they're there anyway, because they probably planted the seed. And even if you're not hearing them verbally, they planted the seed. That's how, yeah.
Beautiful. Kimberly said, if your child transitions by suicide, it's hard to believe it was planned. As time has passed, I can get a glimmer of how it impacted others, his friends, family, peers in the military. It does not all make sense in the first year.
Ah, right, exactly. Or the second year or the third year sometimes. You have to just give this time. And I know that everyone's eager and wanting more. I understand that. It is so frustrating. And yet allow yourself just to write to your child and spend the time doing that. And know that when you hear a comment like this, that the first year it didn't make sense, but in time and listening to other parents and other providers here, that you get a nugget here and there that sometimes grows into something that is just plants a seed in you that is like, that's what I needed to hear. It's going to, that just you carry with you forever. It just can be one comment that just carries you along for a while until the next one comes. So yes, give yourself that grace of time. And if someone resonates with you, kind of seek that out. See if you can't talk to that person a little bit, one-on-one on just a phone call or texting or something like that. Everybody's pretty open here on wanting to help each other.
Beautiful. Catherine is asking you, does Scott ever give any insights as to why a child would suffer horribly for years from an illness?
That is so hard. I've wondered that myself. And in fact, when Scott was 15, he had a seizure disorder. He had a seizure one night out of nowhere. And from that point on, it was like this child who was so healthy then had a seizure disorder. And eventually that, led into his leaving his body. And so, but cancer, I mean, what everyone goes through with that child, is the child taking one for the team in that? Because look at everyone that's taking care of a child that's, whether it's drug related, a disease, and suffering in whatever way. How many people have come into that child's life? How many people's lives have been changed or challenged by that? What have other people learned from that? The friends or the family or unknown people? It's so much bigger than we can see. We focus on just the child suffering. Fortunately, the child knows when they leave their body why that suffering had meaning. But to watch this child that you love suffer is horrible. I mean, you just have to put it in it's horrible. And it's so painful, and that you carry with you. I know that. But then you begin to emerge in knowing that your child knows why, even if you don't know why. They know why, and they know that they signed up for that experience. Why did they need it? I can't answer all that, but there had to be reasons for this that would be bigger spiritually than we can answer. It's purposeful somehow. And that is I stay in that unknown place a lot sometimes until I might get another nugget or something comes through that gives me more insight.
That was beautiful. Thank you. I love this question. Candace is asking, being all-knowing in spirit, why do we need a human experience to learn? Why do we need growth?
Well, as earthlings, we see a lot go on here, right? And all over the world, and now we watch the news and we see so much going on. So I guess the way that the universe, this is really out of my knowledge place, but I'm just going to see what comes out of my mouth here. But the earth is a place of experiences and growth and conflict and love and so much more. So I guess when God, Spirit created all this to put people on planets or this planet, bigger picture, it was to experience life. And so I guess that's the only answer that I can really give you, is that I don't have that answer, but that's kind of what I'm getting, is that to come onto the human experience and be here for whatever amount of time, to live amongst others, to engage with others, to walk away from someone that hurt you, to embrace somebody that hurt you but that love them again. There's so many experiences that can go on. Pain teaches, right? Pain is a terrible teacher, but it is a teacher. And what comes from that? Eventually there's more, so every day since we've been born, we have been experiencing life here, and we come to earth for that. And it's not like everything is like when there were humans first on the earth, right? There's evolution going on all the time. Now it's evolving so fast with technology and everything that we can't even keep up with it sometimes. This is just a place of experiences, this earth. It's experiential in the big picture, which I don't really have all these answers. It's a good question, though. It makes thought-provoking, is to just know that all this vastness that we don't know, it too has meaning and is very purposeful in ways that we haven't been able to explain. I don't know scientists or spiritualists or anybody has been able to bring all that into meaning, to actually give us something concrete, but it has meaning. And I just have to kind of leave it there.
Thank you. Anna is saying, this is also true. I have grown more after the transition of my boys in the last 2.5 years than my own age. So beautiful, Sarah. I love listening to you. Thank you. Just looking to see. Paula is saying, I have 3 sons, 2 in heaven and 1 on earth. My Christopher journeyed to heaven June 20th, 2020. After being hit by an intoxicated driver, Kevin took himself to heaven. It was so much harder for me to hold the pain from Kevin's tragedy. Is that typical, that how our children leave may bring different pain?
Yes. Yes. Because each one of those experiences has its own story. There's a driver, that hit Kevin. What is his experience now? What's that family's experience? And it can just spread into that. And so looking at anything like that, the people that have hurt us, or, Karen, I think of you again, my friend from Australia, when her son was diagnosed with cancer again, the doctors wouldn't even really talk to her. They kind of gave up. And how hard that is. She's now working to get that rectified in some ways. But it's like, why does this happen? Why does it have to be so painful in ways that, I would say that there's a courageous soul in there, definitely, that says, I'm going to come in and I'm going to go through this experience, and I'm going to teach a lot of people about love, or I'm going to teach a lot of people about this disease, the scientists, the doctors, or I'm going to, the court system is going to have to adjust some things to address my experience on this earth. Whatever it might be, it's got meaning and purpose for so many more people than we can know. And think of everything that the medical field learns, or the psychologist learns, or the priest or the minister, or a mom or the neighbor learns from our child's leaving their body. It has purpose in those ways, whether we care about that or not. Our kids see the bigness of it. They see the depth of it. And they know that by leaving in a hard way like that, it's shocking. And yet, is it meant to be shocking? I would say it is, because it's meant to get the attention of people. It's meant to open up eyes. It's meant to maybe change laws and create something that has never been done before to make somebody else's life better. Or someone basically just needs to go to jail in this lifetime, and they will come back in another lifetime and have to rectify that. There's so many pieces and parts. So I'm giving you a lot with that. I think the bottom line is we're never going to have all these answers, but they're great questions, and I can see why they're being asked.
Yeah. Okay, well, and we'll end with this, and then I'll ask you for a few parting words. Lorianne Getzweiler's asking, will they remember all we did here on earth when we meet with them again?
No doubt. Everything. They will remember it better than we will remember it, because they are that all-knowing. And they're behind the scenes orchestrating a lot of this, knowing the path that we're on and what we need. And are we going to always feel them around us? No. But after a while, like for me, I just know Scott's here no matter what. And if I have to struggle, it's like, okay, I know I need this. I don't know why. It's horrible. I hate it. But in that way, you start to expand yourself and allow more answers that can't be answered, just to kind of stay out there without that perfect answer that you needed and thought, I can't survive this without that answer, or that being healed, or that person saying they're sorry. It's the human experience, and there's a lot of questions still. I will leave after my whatever number of years, and I'll leave still with plenty of questions, I'm sure. Even though I'm, given what I'm given here, which I'm grateful, so grateful for.
Beautiful. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you so much. This has just been fabulous. Is there anything you'd like to say to end this meeting? And Galen, you're going to have to stop the recording for me when the meeting's over. And also, if you can, in a few minutes, allow people to unmute themselves. Thank you. Okay, back to you, Sarah.
First of all, I'm so glad that you all came. I love teaching about soul planning. I love talking about it, because honestly, it has changed my life to a place where I never thought I would go. And I want that for all of you. I want you to find that peace of mind that says, there's more to this story. I won't get all the answers. I haven't, but there is more to this story. This is a love story. It will always be a love story. Even if your child told you they hated you as they walked out the door and got hit by a car, this is a love story. That was an experience, and that ended that day. And your child knows immediately as they got to spirit that it was as it was meant to be. So I hope that you take away from this the bigger picture. I hope you'll go to spiritteaches.org. There's over 100 blogs there that Scott and I wrote. He forced me to write, but they're beautiful because I didn't really know that I was channeling so much. And we wrote those in 2015 to 2018, but they're still so valuable. So it's a website, spiritteaches.org. Those blogs are all there. Just read through them. We answered them. They answered a lot of questions. So I wish you well. Don't give up. I'm going to do more talks on soul planning. I think maybe even I need to do some classes. So I'm going to be around. And I so appreciate Irene and Elizabeth asking me to be on tonight. And I'm so glad you all came. I send my love, and you're gonna be okay in the ways that you need to find it, and trust the journey. I say that a lot. Trust the journey. Great. So much love to you all.
Yes, thank you, Sarah. And if Galen, can you let everyone unmute and say goodbye and thank you? And we have a meeting on Thursday evening. I hope you'll join us. So good night, everybody.
Thank you,
Sarah.
Thank you.
Bye.
Sarah.
Thank you, Sarah. Good night.
Thank you.
We appreciate everything.
Thank you.